Dear listeners, welcome to the Deep Journal channel. By subscribing to our channel, you can be informed about detailed reports every time. The Russian-US friction in Eastern Europe and the conflicts in the Donbass continue without slowing down. The most critical point of this friction is currently experienced in the Black Sea. After the missile destroyers sent by the USA to the Black Sea, the Admiral of the Russian Navy announced today that 70 warships and many submarines are in the world's seas, especially many of them have been landed in the Black Sea. This move by Russia was interpreted as Putin's hardest step to end the US presence in the Black Sea. While the Russian admiral boasted about his warships, Ukraine and NATO forces blocked Russian ships in the Black Sea and Azov Seas. Ukraine, which had previously tried to do this in the Kerch Strait, was partially unsuccessful in this attempt. For 12 hours, Ukrainian and NATO warships recaptured the Kerch Strait from Russia 2 weeks ago. However, when the Russian Navy reacted harshly to this Ukrainian initiative, Ukraine withdrew. But today this move seems much more valid. Because, compared to the incident in the Kerch Strait, Ukraine now has much stronger US and NATO support behind it. In Donbass, the events started to heat up more and more with each passing day. Ukraine has been heavily bombing Donbass since the beginning of 2022. Ukraine, in particular, used Bayraktar TB2 unmanned aerial vehicle in the intense attacks on the Russian-backed DPR militia, this time starting the new year by attacking with US quadcopters. After Russia's annexation of Crimea, the Black Sea had become a Russian lake, according to Putin's plans. From now on, Putin would be able to run as he wanted in the Black Sea and make his moves from here. Especially after the turmoil caused by Ukraine in the Donbass region, it seemed to equal Ukraine, one of the important riparians of the Black Sea. At that time, he had good relations with Turkey, another stakeholder of the Black Sea, with the S-300 issue. In the following days, Ukraine decided to stand up again. The pressure that Ukraine put on Donbass with the support of the USA suddenly spread to the Black Sea. When Turkey sold advanced unmanned aerial vehicles capable of hunting S-300s to Ukraine, Putin also clashed with Turkey in this regard, and the Black Sea turned into a place very different from his dream. As the conflict between Ukraine and the Russian-backed militias escalated and Russia gradually besieged Ukraine, the United States began to send great support to Ukraine. The USS Porter missile destroyer, which first landed in the Black Sea, and the other US destroyers that later landed in the Black Sea waters, seemed to have completely overcome the Russian threat in the region. With the intense NATO exercises in the Black Sea, especially over the Crimea, Putin was driven mad. Unable to find what he wanted in the Black Sea, Putin deployed hundreds of thousands of his soldiers and hundreds of missile systems to the Ukrainian border, creating an expectation of military action there. After this move, the Putin-Biden meeting took place recently, and Russia allegedly withdrew tens of thousands of its soldiers from the Ukrainian border. Putin, who has landed dozens of warships and submarines in the Black Sea today, seems determined to put an end to the US and NATO dominance in the Black Sea. According to a leaked report from the Russian Ministry of Defense, the USA has made a new war practice against the Russian army today. Reporting on the reconnaissance flights of the US E-8C attack control aircraft over the areas where the Russian soldiers have been concentrated recently, Russia claims that this may cause an attack similar to the training attacks carried out in the past days. With these developments in the east of Europe, let's see what crazy project Putin's dream of Black Sea and Ukraine will cause in the coming days. Russia put 70 warships and submarines out to sea. The commander-in-chief of the Russian Navy, Admiral Nikolai Evmenov, announced that at the moment there are at least 70 warships and submarines of various types in the waters of the world ocean, especially most of them in Black Sea. Ships and submarines of the Russian Navy perform a wide variety of tasks, ranging from routine patrolling of international waters and ending with tasks related to carrying out combat duty. 2021 for the fleet has become a stage of stable development in all aspects. The Russian Navy has demonstrated day after day that it has an oceanic status and is capable of operating effectively in all latitudes. Said N. Evmenov. Such a large number of Russian warships in the waters of the world ocean are concentrated, especially in the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. In addition, from time to time, Japan and the United Kingdom have conflicts with Russian ships off the coast of the Baltic Sea and Japan. The Russian Navy, which is in conflict with the NATO and Ukrainian Navy in the Black Sea, is constantly fighting with the UK and the US Navy in the Mediterranean. In the past year, the ships and submarines of the Russian Navy have repeatedly encountered tasks on suppressing attempts by NATO ships to violate so-called Russian territorial waters. Meanwhile, while Russian admiral boasting of warships, Ukraine and NATO forces has blocked Russian ships in the Black and Azov Seas. Russian ships in the waters of the Black and Azov Seas are completely prohibited from any access to the internal waters of Ukraine. According to Ukrainian resources, the ban applies to all Russian ships, including the carriage of goods, including cabotage, and passengers. How much this will affect Russian maritime traffic is still unknown. However, experts note that the fact that Ukraine decided to close access to its internal waters for Russian ships only testifies to Kiev's intentions to go for a new escalation, although at the same time, the situation for Russian carriers of passengers and cargo is unlikely to change significantly. Previously, there were calls in Ukraine to interfere with the passage of ships through the Kerch Strait, and for 12 hours Ukrainian and NATO warships recaptured the Kerch Strait from Russia. However, after the Russian Navy's harsh reaction to this Ukrainian initiative, Ukraine withdrew, and then Kiev was threatened with a very serious response to such actions. The Russian-backed regions of outskirts of Donetsk were attacked at once by 4 UAVs of the Ukrainian armed forces. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces began bombing Donbas from the very beginning of 2022. As follows from the information provided, the settlement of Yasinovato was hit by 4 unmanned aerial vehicles. The type of drones of the APU is not given, however, it is reported that drones dropped ammunition at the positions of the DPR militias. This probably indicates the use of U.S. quadcopters, and not the Bayraktar TB2 attack unmanned aerial vehicles, as suggested. This is the first attack by the Ukrainian armed forces on the DPR since the beginning of this year. The attacks are reported to have begun at 12 noon. At the same time, it is known that over N.P. Yasinovato there is a high activity of drones at the moment. There are no much more details regarding the attack by the Ukrainian armed forces. In the meantime, strike control aircraft spotted near largest Russian troop location. The United States seems to practice striking the Russian army. Russian troops concentrated on the territory of the Bryansk, Kursk, Belgorod, Voronezh and Rostov regions could again be subjected to training attacks from the United States. This became known after the relevant data announced by U.S. media, from which it follows that the U.S. Air Force E-8C strike control aircraft carried out a long mission in the Donbas region. Moreover, apparently, this is at least the second such incident over the past week. The American E-8C strike control aircraft operated on the line between the settlements of Privolchanskoye and Novotroitskoye. At the same time, unlike the previous case of the appearance of the American military aircraft E-8C, special attention was paid to the territory of the DPR and LPR. However, taking into account the maneuvers performed by the aircraft also worked on Russian territory. Russian experts call the actions of the United States provocative, especially since just a few hours after the flight of the American plane, negotiations were to take place between the Russian and American leaders, during which, as reported, Biden intended to demand that Putin immediately withdraw Russian troops from the Ukrainian border.